Peter Cook is in Washington this morning, just back from a Marine Corps junket on the USS Dramamine. Mr. Cook has been flying vertically, flying horizontally. He reports on our tax dollars amid our military-industrial complex. What did you learn, Peter, out on an aircraft carrier?
Well, Tom, technically, it's not an aircraft carrier. I learned that the hard way the first time I went out to the USS Wasp. It is an amphibious assault ship. It's one of these ships the Marines would take as they go storm a coastline somewhere around the world. And what I saw firsthand was the F-35 in action. This is the controversial fighter plane. This is our trip out there. We flew on an Osprey from the Pentagon out off to the North Carolina coast. And once we got there again, we saw the F-35 in action. Real operations is what they're trying to simulate right now in the USS Wasp. Why is this important? Because the F-35, over budget, overdue by several years, is finally close to getting combat certification, at least the first squadron. It will be a squadron of Marine F-35s. This is this fascinating plane that can land vertically, take off on a short runway. We saw them in action for the better part of a day on Tuesday.
Peter, it's not an accident that it's the Marine Corps that organized this trip and flew you out there. The F-35 is the culmination of a 40-year dream. It's a strategic challenge for Marine Corps aviation that goes back to Vietnam. But the other services are going to have to buy this airplane, too. Are they as enthusiastic as the Marine Corps is?
Well, it's obvious the Marine Corps, they're first out of the box. They wanted this plane badly, but so do the other services. And yet we are seeing the Air Force and the Navy versions taking more time for development. There have been some issues with how the Navy version will get on and off an aircraft carrier. They're working on some of those issues. But this is a plane, Brendan, that is going to replace basically the entire fighter fleet that we have right now. And it's a program that many have said is too big to fail, and at this point they're working. This is a turning point, arguably, for this plane. If they can get the first squadron certified for combat status, then the hope is that production ramps up, the cost comes down, and maybe the controversy does as well.
Well, maybe it does. Brendan, help me out here. You know more about this than I do. This is not Tom Cruise and Top Gun.
No, so what he's looking at, so the F-35 for the Marine Corps, where Peter, on the amphibious assault vehicle, that's going to fly close air support. This is farther into the line of combat, but it's also supposed to do these long-range missions for the Navy. It's supposed to land on the actual carriers. Peter, you know, am I correct in understanding that the real reason for the cost overruns is this was supposed to be simple? It was supposed to be the same plane for every service, but it's a dramatically different plane for every service, right?
Well, dramatic, maybe, trust me, this is super high technology, Brendan, and any modification here is a major deal. But I think from talking to people, and I've covered this for years now, I've been out to where Lockheed Martin makes the planes in Fort Worth, Texas. I've been following this plane for a long time. The fact that they did both acquisition and production and development at the same time is really at the core of what the problems for this program. They thought they could do both simultaneously, and they proved that that's really challenging. Now they're at the point where they're trying to wrap up testing and move on to full production.
Peter, it's like asking about doctors in medicine. Do the pilots like this airplane?
I spoke to two pilots, several pilots actually, but on board the Wasp, and there have been criticisms of the plane. The two guys I talked to are thrilled with this plane. One guy described it on the flight deck as like a Kentucky Derby thoroughbred, just hoping to lift off the deck. What they tell me, Tom, is that the situational awareness, the computer systems, it's like a flying sensor. Their ability to see what's going on around them is unprecedented in this plane, and it's just a night and day leap from where they are in current aircraft.
Peter, I promise we'll do more on this. I'm really fascinated by this. It's actually something you've been reporting on for years. My question, we're out of time, Brendan Greeley, but to Peter Cook, my question would simply be, what does this mean about troops on the ground? The fact is you still need troops on the ground.